female entrepreneurs turned besties share on life, business, and the journey through the mess. Join their community with every new episode for connection, education, a few laughs, and the hype energy like a bathroom full of drunk girls at a bar. It's okay.
We're your friends now!
Hey guys, it's Ashleigh.
Hey, it's Biz.
Hey, it's Katie, and welcome to another week of We're Your Friends Now.
We're 22 now.
I don't know about you. I'm 22. I do want to start off with like a huge thank you to everybody who joined in on our backstage and live stream last week for our 21st episode. That was so fun. I think we're going to do another one in the future sometime where we do like a Zoom call so everybody can see everybody. But it was really fun to have the chat going along with us and stuff.
It was.
I loved that. Okay, I also want to start out this week with a small correction to a previous episode.
Oh.
So we talked about first impressions a few weeks back, and I was talking about my first impression of Ashleigh.
Wait, really correct? Hold on. Okay, keep going.
And yesterday, Facebook and Murray Keller reminded me that 4 years ago, during COVID, a bunch of us would do these like Zoom happy hour calls. And on one of them, Murray told everybody to do hair like mine, which is just a giant pony. Yeah, like a giant ponytail on the very top of your head. And he sent a screenshot and I was like, that's Ashleigh in the corner. And I didn't know you like at all then. And you're there like redoing your hair. And I like instantly flooded back that like I so distinctly remember Murray doing that. It was so funny to me. But then like I thought you just seemed so cool. And then you like joined in on putting your hair up on top of your head. And I was like, oh, maybe this girl likes to like, I can't believe she did that. She just seems like so cool. I didn't know that you liked to laugh.
I am a huge dork. Yeah, that's me.
So anyways, there's our correction.
How funny.
That's really
That's
cute.
like connecting the dots all of a sudden. I think that happens to people sometimes because Ashleigh is a common name.
Yeah.
And I get this all the time that people are like, you look really familiar. That must be what it is. People have like interacted with me and they don't know.
Yeah, no, like this person
familiar
on
because they
Zoom I
see me.
recognize. Yeah.
Yeah. But I get that all the time. People are like, I think I went to high school with you. And I'm like, you did not. I can guarantee it. Because we're in Boston right now. And I went to high school in California. So
I really love this season of like my Facebook memories because it is a lot of Zoom screenshots.
Yeah.
And like I just am like, oh, so that's what trauma bonding looks like.
it is so funny. I'm
like, where the fuck did we have the time to just sit on like 2 hour Zooms?
2 hour long.
Like it literally went from like work, happy hour, work, happy hour, friends. But yeah, because I have them from like mortgage moms, and then of course ours were wild like every night. I just love this season, and when it like floods back now, but it's crazy. 4 years, man. Ooh.
4 years. It's crazy. And it was, it was so hard in the time. Like I remember it just being like, God, like I wish we could just have a happy hour in person. And now I look at that, I was like, oh, that was so cute.
And then we all went to Cincinnati.
We all went to Cincinnati.
and made our own. That was our first happy hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, a little correction and good little memory. Not saying COVID is a good memory, but like that.
Yeah.
Those
the good that comes out of it.
were like, yeah, really great memories. So okay, should we just dive in? I'm really excited. Okay, I want to give credit where credit is due for what we're talking about this week. So yesterday, Ashleigh texted me a TikTok by a creator. Her name is Dana Dozzy, Dozzyyy. So if you want to like go look up the video, you can see the original, kind of where this started. And I instantly was like, oh my gosh, this is so good. We should talk about this and unpack it, because I think it's something all of us do. I think a lot of people do it. And it just sent me on this spiral of like, I have so many thoughts. So let's just, and this is who we are, right? Like, we're just going to be raw and like unpack the thought process together.
Yeah.
So basically she talked about using shame as a motivator. And Ashleigh, you can help me out here, because I know you watched it too. And I was really very tired when I watched it. But it basically was talking about like how many situations you put yourself in where your motivation is, well, like, why can't you just do this? Like, why can't you just get it done? Or, you know, like, why can't you be a better person and get it done? And that shame is your motivation to actually do the thing.
Yeah. I think it goes a little hand in hand with like procrastination. And if, what is it? I think it's the subtle art of not giving a fuck, maybe.
Yeah.
And he talks about that procrastination becomes this never ending cycle, because you keep proving to yourself, well, if I procrastinate, it works. And so I keep procrastinating.
Yep.
And that kind of went hand in hand with that, because I think that it's just a cycle people get into. It's like, I put something off, I don't do it, I beat myself up over it. I tell myself a story about how I am worthless because I couldn't even respond to that email that I said I was going to. And then that made me finally respond to the email. And so it's like, it's reaffirming in your head, like, if I shame myself, I accomplish things.
Yeah. Yeah. So, obviously this isn't like a healthy habit to have.
Yeah. You're like, just, yeah.
And I think it's one that a lot of people just unintentionally, you subconsciously do it. Right. And, I think that there's a lot also, we talk about how like women especially, but a lot of people, women especially, are kind of raised to like, you're supposed to talk poorly about yourself. You're supposed to feel bad in comparison. Like, you're supposed to recognize how much better other people are than you. And so when we get into that frame of mind, it almost feels comforting, and like it's an easy habit to get into, because we're told our whole lives that we're not good enough. So now we're just speaking it back to us. Right. So I had a few thoughts, like, as I was first letting this sink in. What do y'all think are your main motivators for making decisions or for taking actions?
I will say I definitely have been caught in that trap of using shame both subconsciously and consciously, but I really try not to, because I know that it's not healthy, and I've done a lot of work on that in therapy over the years. But now I try to use as a motivator, like the checklist, getting to delete something off of my list feels really, really good. I love that feeling of being like, I did that and I did that. And look at how productive I am. I already did X, Y, and Z. And then body doubling. Those are like my two main hacks that I hope are pretty healthy. of like, I need to get something done. Like, you're also doing a similar type of project. Let's grab our computers, go down to the coffee shop, give ourselves an hour. And like, anytime I can have almost a timer, it helps, because I'm like, I know that I've got this amount of time to work on it and no other time, which is why I find myself a lot of times I do a lot of work when my kids are in the bath or the shower, because I'm like, okay, I got 20 minutes. Like, I better get on and get as much work done as I can. So it's like a timer. That helps me a lot. I don't know. What about you, Biz?
Well, I wish I would have watched this video. Y'all gotta send it to me so I can catch up on that.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
You'll love it.
I think that my entire like growth in my business, the rapid growth that I had since my dad died, is was tied to shame, motivation, and that negative self-talk with that. And I think that that's like the ugly side to, or like the quiet elephant in the room in all of us. Like, whenever we say things like rising tide raises all ships, right? Or like we talk about like the FOMO, you know, or like you see somebody else, it's like, well, if they can do it, why can't I? Or like any of that motivation of, well, why not me? And so like those types of things, like those are the motivational speeches, if you will, that really get me. It's like, yeah, why not me? You know, that's what amps me up. But that's also like, I mean, I'm coming off the heels, you know, of some of the deepest depression and lost feeling that I wasn't sure I would come out of. And that was really, I think, because of this what now I'm realizing is shame motivator and what we're talking about and like all of those things. And then like you get surrounded in and you're drowning in it and it's terrible. So like, I mean, real talk, I've been in intense therapy for like a year now, and still doing it to like unknot that mess. So it's like, Ashleigh, that's one of the things that I think is really strengthened our friendship is there's so much weight in the statement that you just said about how you've put in a lot of work over it to get to that. And you are someone that I like have leaned on, and that even in the early stages, right, as like an example of someone like to look to of like, okay, this is like, if she can do it, why can't I, you know?
I appreciate
and
that.
Figuring it out. Like, and sometimes like you do need friends and people to step up in that. But I just like the way that you just graced over that is so telling as someone who is like not telling, it's different. It hits differently as somebody who is like sat in that puddle and like clawed out of it as well. That like, it's just really good. It's really great that you've done it. And like, as your friend, I've seen you live that out, like without you even calling it out. So thank you for being the example. So yeah, so all to say that like, so now motivators for me, I am currently, and I think even our waddle episode was kind of stemming from this, and how I'm waddling through is like the goal setting. And so I am very much in the thick of retraining my brain so I can have more SMART goals, and then figuring out motivations besides just more, because more makes sense. And that's because I think I used to always make decisions by what would give me the most opportunity in the future. For like the first half of my life, it was all about just creating opportunities because I didn't know what I would want to do. And like, let's see which one takes off and rah, rah. And then you know, it just was too much. And so I've really found that in my mid 30s, it's kind of this life adjustment of maybe becoming my own or whatever, but figuring out what I want and my motivators to be. And it's shifting. Like it's absolutely shifting right now. So I'm so glad we're talking about this. I'm so glad somebody did that, because like I never realized to even call it a shame motivator until we're having this conversation.
So that was going to be my next question for you, is like, when you talked about how like sometimes, because Biz, you specifically said that like sometimes you have used it as a motivation, do you even realize it in the moment? Because I know that I have done it a lot, and until I watched that video, I never realized that that's what I was doing. But you feel this external pressure of like, oh my gosh, but I said I would do this, or oh my gosh, but people expect this, or it's going to look bad if I don't do X, Y, and Z. And I never realized that like really I'm shaming myself.
No, I never called it out as shame
Yeah,
before.
I didn't.
Yeah, like honestly, but yeah, well, I feel like so exposed, raw.
Yeah, do you feel like naked on the spotlight? Like,
no, I didn't think of it that way, and it's honestly like makes a lot of sense because. Yeah. And I was the only one shaming myself, maybe, or I don't know. Well, obviously there's no like time capsule, right, to go back and see, but it feels like in reflection, it would be easy to say it was just me. But to me though, a lot of it, like I said, it stems from my dad's death. Like that was the first time I really kind of threw myself out there, and I was like, all right, let's see what you're made of now, kiddo. You know, like fucking security blanket's gone. Like, there ain't no parachute. Like, it was, so that was intense. And I think that's probably, I don't think it started out as shame. I think it probably started out as disappointment, like wanting to prove that I, you know, was a good legacy.
It's interesting because I think disappointment is probably like, if we were to go grab Brené Brown's book, Atlas of the Heart, I bet that there are some little, she's got little sub emotions under, like anger has like little sub emotions. I feel like disappointment might be a sub emotion to shame. And that's why sometimes we don't always realize like, oh, I'm shaming myself. We're like, no, I'm just disappointed. And then if you're like, well, let's dig deeper on that. Like, what is disappointing? What did you do that was disappointing? And you're like, well,
and who did you disappoint?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and right. And the question of who did you disappoint was a really hard one for me, because like, my dad is dead. It's not like he's here to have an opinion,
Yeah.
And so that's whenever I realized that like the standard that I was holding myself to was self-fabricated. And that's where it kind of shifted then. And I kind of ping-ponged around it, like, okay, well then let's do this. And like, I talk about it a lot in therapy because I got kind of manic about it. And for years, in my business growth, while other things suffered. And I was talking to a friend this morning, I'm not going to call her out, but we're very similar. And we were talking about how we just did things because somebody told us it was a good idea. Yeah. And like, you just keep doing that. And then at what point, like retirement, some fictitious thing, like, what is this kind of bit? And so my motivations, it used to only just be financial, like, and just the more you have, the more opportunities there are. It's simple, but it's not like that anymore for me. And it's a weird transition. Like, it's not something like a weird, and that's the thing too. I think sometimes we're quick to say stuff like Ashleigh did earlier, but it's not like, oh, one day you wake up and this is a different thing. Right. It's a lot of like little
the
tiny
boiling
decisions.
Water. If you start in cold water and it slowly starts boiling, and one day you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's kind of toasty in here.
I forgot why I was really bringing up my friend and I that are so similar in the way we were talking about it. Oh, with all, it's like you grind and you do all of these things. And then it's like, at what point do you start, making decisions to change your lifestyle to like reap some benefits, and I realized that when I was in Belize around all of these women that are so much smarter and mature and advanced than I am, and saying like, take the pressure off. Like, you're going to kill yourself. You take the pressure, and I'm like, but I can't take the pressure off. And then you sit there and you look at it and you're like, okay, well, where is this pressure actually coming from? And that's the season right now. It's like allowing myself to stop putting so much pressure. And it's a very uncomfortable place because I feel like I also am holding out on a hope and a prayer is what it feels like, that there is no middle ground, but that's just my anxiety and the way that I used to operate speaking, that if I'm not frantic, then I'm not successful. And there's tools and systems and a track record and all of this stuff in place that says otherwise. So like, it's an interesting spot to be making conscious decisions to downshift. And that's where I'm at transparently right now. And hopefully I don't end up, and hopefully it works, because so far it's a really, conversation is very timely. I feel like I'm talking too much.
Because I think you just right now, like a total moment. And I think it's interesting because I bet a lot of people would resonate with it, is if I'm not frantic, I am not successful.
Yeah.
It's like that. Like, I don't know exactly why so many of us seem to have it. Maybe part of it is like the way public schools taught us, like, being under the stress of deadlines and testing and all this stuff, that those were the most productive times in school. And so we carried that with us into adulthood, where it's like, if things aren't constantly falling down around me, then I am not doing enough. I'm not doing anything.
Thank you for bringing that up. I remember why I was going to bring up my friend. It's because both of us feel like we do things very quickly and can like handle a lot of tasks in a day. and knock it out. And now we've got leverage, and it's like you're only doing like a third of what I think can be done. And that feels weird, but then it's almost making us reflect that we were doing so much. And so I don't think that every person has this, maybe we can call it a problem with the shame motivator, but I think it is something that like you can identify really quickly in someone else, like that they'll go to like an unhealthy level. And that was something else when I was in Belize. One of the husbands was actually like, you know, because neither of us talked about the trauma that we went through to get to where we are. And the husband actually brought up how he just assumes all of us have had these journeys because you don't get to that level without having overcome things. And that's all that needs to be said, is that there's an understood respect. And so all those thoughts like built into what we're talking about with it, because I don't think everybody struggles, but that's a big piece of it with me, is that if I were to set my personal expectations at the same level I allow others to be, what would that look like? And that's like the spot that I'm in, and I'm tracking it, and y'all told me to give it 6 months. And so fingers crossed that's the truth. But what do you think about that? Like, that people who seem to do these superhuman things, like, are they actually doing superhuman things or no? And that's kind of my figuring that out. Healthy, like in a healthy way.
I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because I do sometimes feel like there are some similarities with people that can accomplish some huge things. And I joke about this all the time because my husband is in the oil and gas industry, and obviously I'm in the real estate industry. And these are two industries that you could have made a shit ton of money if you got into them in the 80s. And so I always laugh. I'm like, you know, we were just born way too late. Because there, you know, I think both of us would have done really well back then. So I do attribute like a lot of things to timing, and that we are all in our 30s. And when you see, there's like some meme type thing that goes around that's like, Oprah didn't do whatever until she was 42, and so didn't even hit his first million until this age. And they're all like 40s, 50s, 60s. And you're like, okay, so I attribute so much of stuff to like luck, timing, you know, whatever for other people. And I don't ever give myself that same grace of like, you're 32, like, calm down, you know?
Yeah. Well, even only a few years ahead of you, I'm like, calm down. I'm like, like, it's fine. But yeah, it does, like that feeling, right? And I think that that's like the conditioning more piece of it, of maybe our generation too. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Katie, though? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I don't remember.
Oh, okay.
But to go back to Katie's original question of like, do you ever identify that you're using shame as the motivator? That was what a lot of my therapy started about. I was suffering postpartum after Cassie was born, and it was just sort of missed, or, you know, kind of looked over, because when you have a baby in the hospital and you're like, I'm feeling kind of sad, everybody's like, well, yeah, like your baby's super sick. Like, of course you're sad. Of course you're struggling. Of course it's really hard not having the baby at home. Of course. And so it really went, I just didn't get any help. And I was not doing well mentally. And that was and it was my first time being an adult and living on my own and having my own household to run. And I moved away from family. So it was like this huge compounding effect that really allowed everything to magnify itself and like culminate into a shitstorm really quickly. And I went to therapy, and I was doing all this work, and I was like, one of the biggest things I struggle with is my health, because I didn't gain a lot of baby weight in the first place because she was born so early and so tiny. And I still just did not like my postpartum body, and I got really unhealthy about it really quickly. So trigger warning for people about eating. If you need to skip this, please do. I literally would not eat and had only a little bit of calories every single day. I was running at least 5K a day. I was going to the gym. I was the absolute skinniest I'd ever been, and I still wasn't happy with it.
And my main motivator to like not eat would be shaming myself. I would literally be calling myself a fat pig. You're disgusting. Like it's like the most obvious shaming you could possibly use. And my therapist made me say those things out loud to her about what I was saying to myself. And she's like, whose voice is that? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. Nobody had ever impressed that upon me. My mother never talked to me that way. My father never talked to me that way. Like, I don't know where it came from. And it was really scary to realize like I was speaking to myself in a way that hadn't even been modeled to me. I had just like created this horrible inner voice and inner critic. And it was literally on the path to like could have killed me if I didn't deal with it. And but the frustrating part was how well it worked, because as soon as I like had done all the work and really removed that and caught myself and stopped doing it, suddenly you're like, dang, like I really have a hard time not eating or something. Like it'd be nice to maybe just go back, like shake myself and have it work like magic. But it just, you know, and it's hard because it's like that idea of like, this is a really easy way to get results on something. If I sit there and tell myself, you're a piece of shit for not having done enough work, get your ass out there and start working. Like, you're like, okay, yes. Like but it's not healthy. And that's a really difficult thing to balance, because we all do that in society. We find unhealthy ways that get results and go, well, it must be healthy because it works.
Yeah. Not everything that works is good. I think that there's
sustainability. No more good. Sustainability. That's what we keep talking about. Secondhand therapy, y'all. Because I'm like, I think, how is it bad if it's bad? Like, you just like exactly. But with me, with working, like you just said it exactly. Like, God, we're so human. We're all so human. Ugh.
So yeah, so I didn't know, I think in that exact moment when I was first doing it, this is me shaming myself. And I like didn't consciously be like, let me think of something mean to say. Like it just happened. And then it got labeled and started to like, you know, you start with little things. Like they always say the first step is noticing. And that becomes really weird, because it's like, where is it in your body? And like, where are you feeling it in your body? And like, you're not doing anything about it. You're doing nothing about it at all. Literally just noticing it. And that was when it started to be like, oh, that's not a nice thing to say.
Do you recognize it now because you got into the habit of doing that?
Yes. So I would say that I've gotten in such a good habit around like the way I used to use shame as a motivator, but I think it sneaks its way in other ways now, where it's like more so, well, other people can make XYZ happen and you can't. Like, what is wrong with you? And so it's almost a little more sneaky now. And I gotta start noticing how it's showing up elsewhere. Like, you know, a lot of it is that isolation of like, oh, I'm the only person struggling with this. I must be doing something wrong, or something must be wrong with me.
Yes. Or like I've had this problem in air quotes consistently, like something is wrong with me, which is very valid. Like I do think it's important to go internal and see if there's something, you know, like, oh, is there something we need to examine there? But like I had one this weekend. I had so much fun getting stuff for Connor's Easter basket, and like I picked out all the stuff that I knew he would love and intentionally didn't make it super big because we have Christmas, his birthday, Easter, and like it's just so much. And, you know, like whatever. And I was so excited, and we sat down to like put his Easter basket together and put candy in the eggs. And when I got it in there, I was so upset because it didn't look big enough or full enough or whatever. And then I also like thought that I grabbed jelly beans at the store, and I didn't. And I was like, I had other candy, but not jelly beans.
Yep.
And immediately, it was like my mindset completely shifted to like, wow, Katie, you couldn't even keep track of all the things that you had for him to make sure that like the Easter basket looked good. And he understands that, like, you know, he'll be excited to see it. And you can't even remember to get jelly beans. Like, like, how do you not remember this? How do you not, like, all these other moms that I know that they have struggles, but like they can at least get like simple tasks done. Like you don't, like, why don't you function? And it was just, and like, I said a small part of it out loud to Brett because he saw it on my face. He saw my whole face change. And he was like, I can just run to the store and get jelly beans real quick. And I was like,
but that doesn't fix it.
I was like, but I want to be a wife who just has everything taken care of and the mom who makes everything magic. And he was like, but you do take care of things and Connor thinks everything. Like, who tells you that you aren't those things? And I was like, me, I tell me. And he was like, so what? So, and then, you know, everything was fine. Like, Connor's obsessed with stuff in his Easter basket.
Sky didn't fall. Yeah. That,
you know,
I
it was
right there with you.
It was almost shocking to me of like how quickly because I will say, like, there are parts of this topic that I was really excited to dive into, and parts of it that I really identified because I think there's a very distinct standard of like, or a very distinct difference of like having a standard in which you present yourself to people. Right. And so like you kind of negatively talk to yourself if you don't uphold that standard, and understand a lot of people give you grace, and then feel unnecessary pressure due to like your perception of people's judgments. And so like I've got a lot of that I'm very conscious of, like, constantly. And it was so shocking to me how quickly that creeped in to me and just completely like physically changed me.
Yeah. And that's what I was like, that's what the first step is, noticing, because it is overwhelming how quickly it can take over. And it's so helpful if you can have somebody there that's observing and able to talk with you through it. Because I just had something so in a sense, like similar vein of like, this is not a thing to be beating yourself up over. That's clinically insane, Ashleigh. I had dinner prepped. So I cooked dinner a day early because I was worried about like ground beef going expired. So it's all prepped into the fridge. I forgot that I'd done that. So I look at my little dinner menu and it says that we're having mashed potatoes and sausages. So I'm like, cool. I'm going to be the great wife because my husband cooks dinner a lot. And I was like, I'm going to beat his ass to it today. I'm going to start the potatoes. So I get the potatoes out and I am chopping it. And in the middle of chopping, I'm like, shit, I was supposed to peel the potato first. And so I'm already like mad at myself for just spacing that. And so I'm trying to peel this potato that's already been chopped up. And Jim comes downstairs and he looks at the potato and he looks at me and he goes, you know, there's tater tots in the freezer. And I go, yeah, but it's supposed to be bangers and mash tonight. And he goes, well, you already made dinner last night, but we can have that if it's going to make you fly off the handle. Like, I'm sitting there looking at this idiotic potato. What the fuck do I do? Like, I have to waste a potato. It's literally one potato out of a 3-pound bag. And I'm like just standing there paralyzed. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Do we waste the potato? And so he just comes over, grabs the potato and puts it in the trash and goes, we'll make these later. But in my head, I'm like, wow, Ashleigh, you couldn't make the mashed potatoes right. Now you wasted a potato. You already made dinner. Spiral.
You said something that really like brings up an interesting point, and it ties into a topic that I think we'll probably do. The whole thing that I sent about women's brains being spaghetti and men's brain being waffles, right? And so, but something that you said, it resonates with me so much, is like, you had this whole plan and reason for doing the plan, right? Like, Shay makes dinner a lot. You were going to beat him to it. And then in your head, you're already like way down the rabbit trail. Like, I've already made plans. I'm going to do this. He's going to react this way. This is going to happen. I'm going to feel this way about it. It's going to validate me in X, Y, and Z way. And so like, I think a lot of times we fall short of these ridiculous, outlandish plans that we make. And then we're like, I suck.
Yeah, literally.
And like, that's what, like, sometimes Brett will ask me what's bothering me and I'll tell him, and it's like a 3-minute dissertation of like, well, I planned to do this and I didn't do it.
So then walk you through it.
yeah, like this, and this didn't happen. And then I wanted this ready for you. And then I wanted to do this for you and blah, blah, blah. And it goes through this. And he's like, okay, I mean, cool, but like, you didn't have to do all that. I'm like, I have to be impressive, like constantly.
It's so weird. It's so weird, man.
I love Shane's reaction. If it'll make you fly off the handle, not fly off the handle. Like, we can have that. If it'll, like, that is such a loving response. And like in that moment to do that. And like, that was also me in my nap on Sunday.
Yes.
It's so bad.
Wait, this is a great example.
I literally sent y'all and deleted it like twice.
I
like,
saw.
I just need a mental health day. And I was like, no, you've been sucking up in podcast, but I really just want a nap. Like, but like, and I literally was like standing in the kitchen, like crying onto Jonathan. I'm like, I just want to sleep. The whole day is gonna be wasted. And y'all, I laid down and my head hit the pillow. Y'all had sent like 30 texts. I opened my eyes and was like, ugh. But it was like 4 hours. But like but I just felt like such a 2-year-old when I woke up because I was just tired. But it was like the world was ending, like it was just. So I just love that we all have these really stupid examples. Like,
oh yeah, food. And mine tend to center around food. Like oh my God, Cassie wanted an ice cream cake for her birthday. And I was like, I don't think I need to order that ahead of time. I always see them in the freezer at Dairy Queen. Yeah. So I just run and get one. And so that's what I did. And they didn't have the flavor she wanted. So I ended up going to 4 stores. Couldn't find any ice cream cakes at any of them. And then by then I was starving because it was supposed to be a 30-minute trip. And so I was like, I'll eat when I get home. It's fine. So I'm starving. And I've been to the gym. So I'm like extra hungry. Yeah. And I had to pee. And then, like, so I'm just like, this is a ball of rage. I'm like, texting Shane. They didn't have the fucking ice cream cake. And so stupid. I'm coming home. I need to eat. I get home, and I'm throwing a full blown temper tantrum. I am throwing shit. I made myself a tuna sandwich and I fucking chuck it in the recycling bin. And he's like, okay, what flavor ice cream cake does she want? I'm gonna go down to Safeway. You eat. And he fucking comes back with a cake. And I'm like, where the fuck did you find that? He goes, it was in the bakery. And I was like, I was in the ice cream aisle because it's ice cream cake. He goes, it was in the bakery because it's a cake. And so yeah, it's a real thing. And so that's what
he went and got it instead of being like, did you check the bakery? Yeah. Like, I'm just saying, again, point for Shane. Point for Shane.
I don't know though. That sometimes makes me so mad because I'm like, oh, you're so capable. Like I can't.
But I walked him through my reasoning. He goes, yeah, well, it was in the bakery. But yeah, point for him. He wasn't like, you should have thought about that. Like, very good about it. So it's helpful because when people speak kindness to you, it helps reinforce you speaking kindness to yourself.
Well, and being a model of that grace, right, is like, I think each of us is pretty good at giving grace to other people. But somebody who models grace to you is like a pattern interruption and kind of causes your brain to go like, wait, I can be kind about this situation.
Yeah, I give grace too.
Yeah. Oh my God.
What? I'm not a piece of shit for the same thing that I wouldn't call you a piece of shit for. Like, that's crazy.
Easter.
Are you bidding me with being nice?
Easter Sunday, I was making double eggs.
That'd be like the golden rule is one big bid, and then now you're bringing up Easter. Sorry.
No, Easter Sunday, I was making deviled eggs and for like our family dinner. And I did them my usual way and they would not peel. They would not peel. And so it took me probably like 10 full minutes to peel these like 28 deviled eggs or whatever I made. And so it put me 10 minutes behind schedule. And so dinner was 10 minutes later than what we had originally, very casually, might I add, with everybody. There were 5 of us eating together, and all of us were like, okay, so maybe like 5:30. So 5:40, we start plating our food. You would have thought I burned the world down, because I was like, I can't believe I did that. I should have come in sooner. I should have started sooner. Like, Katie, you should know you always take longer. You're not as efficient as you used to be, like blah, 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 all this stuff. And like, Brett just looked at me and was like, it's okay. Like, all of the food is still warm. It's 10 minutes. Like, and he even brought a positive to it, because he was like, you know, it gave me 10 minutes to, Connor had played in a puddle. And so he was like, I got to go like give him a quick bath to wash off his hands and feet. And like, he got mud in his hair. So he got to wash his hair. And he was like, it was perfect timing. I got to do that, put on like some fresh clothes for him and stuff. And, you know, it was perfect. And I was like, that's sweet. I suck. I was like, I'm sorry. I'm always running late. But, you know, he was like, where do you come up with all of these like expectations that you put on yourself? And I think it's like I think there's a lot to it for me personally about like being very unimpressed with myself lately. And a lot of this comes with like being past capacity and burnout and all of the things. And knowing what I used to be capable of in terms of like efficiency, productivity, things like that, and not understanding why I can't still be like that, even though reality is that like my life is what it is. And it's almost like I have this like perceived perception, that didn't make sense, of like how people feel about me or how they view me. And I probably amplify that a million times of like, if I do this one thing wrong, then like everybody's going to view me as a shitty human. And I think one of the most like powerful things that I took away from that video was like, and I've done this to myself, so I don't know why I forgot it. So what? So what? Right? So like, and I say this all the time, like, get really clear on your mission and really clear on what matters. And then like, so what to the rest of it? Yes, things matter. Yes, how you show it matters. Being a person of your word matters. Like, what you should want to be a good person. And also like, did your actions like compromise your mission in life or the people who truly matter to you? And if no, then so what? Because the reality is most people probably didn't even realize that you quote unquote failed at what you did.
Do you think, Katie, in like this season that you're in now, that like, do you think that you have put too high of expectations on yourself in the past? And that what you like, this comparison that you keep talking about to like how you used to be, that isn't success because of where you are now on the value layering that you would identify as good compared to then? Does that make sense?
That's hard to answer, because at the time, I don't think my expectations were too high for myself, because I have always had a really high capacity and could be really efficient. And I was like, I didn't really face burnout and stuff, you know? So like I would hit my goals or exceed my goals and I didn't feel burnout, and I still had like this wonderful balance. And like, I don't think at the time the expectations were too high. I think my reality of like thinking that I should, okay, like Ashleigh, you and I talked about how incredible, it just mind blowing that Taylor Swift has like done this crazy successful tour, re-recorded a couple albums, wrote a new album, recorded a new album, like all these things. I feel like I should be able to do that. And also like, because so many people function well with a toddler and I am just over here like not, I just feel like I should be able to do all of that, because why not? Because I always have been able to. And so like, it wasn't in the time, it wasn't too high of expectations. But now probably yes. And also my expectations for myself these days are like, fucking survive. And it feels like shit, you know, but like.
Well, I think sometimes we externally tell ourselves like, oh, right now I'm in the season of survival, but I don't think we always believe it. And so we're still holding ourselves to it internally, but we're not validating that that's what we're doing to ourselves. And so there's this like this letdown of like, well, you didn't accomplish all the stuff you said. And you're like, but wait, you said it was just about surviving and we did that.
Yeah.
Just at me next time, Ashleigh. Wow. Wow. I didn't even
Well, it just sounds like you're in a similar spot too, of like where I'm talking about like realizing that I have these high expectations for myself that I don't hold anyone else accountable to. And just because I did it and X was produced from it, also, you know, ABC fell off this. And so like where we are now and what we like go to compare ourselves to motivate us to where we're going, like realizing that this person you're comparing that to in your spot is like not somebody you would want to be anyway.
And this could be like a whole separate episode or therapy session for me. I think that like a lot of mine stems from I want to do all of these things because I'm so unhappy with a lot of things, and it'll give me a sense of like pride in myself or a little bit of happiness, or it's like a coping mechanism of like feeling a little bit better because the bar is on the floor right now. You know, and so it's almost like it's not even just me telling me I have to do it or should do it to impress other people. It's almost like it's a means of survival for me to feel like a little bit human or a little bit like
yeah,
and to prove to myself, I think that like I still can't, like I got it in me somewhere.
Yeah, I think that is hard. That, you know, there's any number of reasons that your capacity can change. It can be changing with, I mean, your mind, you know, like I'd imagine when you turn 80 and your mind just does not work as quickly as it used to, that's fucking frustrating. And you're like, I used to be able to do all this, and now like technology is confusing to me, and that's really frustrating. So there's a lot of different ways that can happen, and like there's obviously going to be so much more change throughout our lives, personally, politically, like on the world globe scale. Like if we don't teach ourselves how to adapt, we're just going to be stuck in these cycles forever.
Well, and don't you think it's interesting too, like talking about the age thing and technology, and this is so off topic, but my brain likes to go here. Thinking about the ways that people used to feel like productive or efficient, and like, let's talk about paperwork, right? Like there was a whole system to filling out paperwork, filing it correctly, putting it, like usually you have to scan something, fax something, fill it out, like, and I love doing all that shit, honestly, like doing it all by hand, like putting it, and now it's so fast. You fill something out and you put it in a folder or something online, right? Or you hit submit or whatever.
Yeah. And it goes to the cloud.
Yeah. Something that used to take a lot of time takes up a lot less time. And we somehow tell ourselves that we need to fill, like, oh, great, I got that time back, I can fill it with other productive activities. When in reality, I think that like you still accomplish the same thing. You might not feel as fulfilled because you didn't like do it the way you thought or whatever. But I think it probably does also mess with people's like feeling of productiveness, because like all of a sudden handling, let's say, 50 files in a day, it doesn't seem as impressive because it didn't take the time or, you know, the physical, like, I don't know, whatever.
There's not that like,
this is such a rabbit hole. Yeah. I wonder how much that affects it too. Wow. Thank you for this, because I have a quiet evening at home tonight, and this is going to be my research on if there's any studies done on
productivity and going up in workers is a huge thing that I'm watching too with the markets. In the job market and how it's impacting inflation. So like there's a ton of really good articles out there on it. And then it gets even deeper into like nurturing versus your like with your cultural upbringing. And Jonathan is big on these statistics and just understanding, because that's like the way that he combats any type of controversial subject is like go straight to data. Yeah. So he can participate from an intelligent level with anybody on any side if he understands the data. Yeah. But you're right. And honestly, the other thing is too, Ashleigh, like whenever your therapist is asking like, well, whose voice that is, like, it's wild how much social media and us just getting connected, even on like AOL Instant Messenger and stuff, way back
Yes.
when, because I think that was where a lot of the pressure, I think we as a generation did it ourselves.
Yeah, probably.
And I think that's the danger when you like have young people setting the tone for what's to be. I mean, it's almost like a mini AI whenever you got a whole bunch of preteens on the internet together. Yeah, you know, like that we farmed it as a country. So I mean, it's
because like
but I don't think it can. I think it can just be the universal voice of being an American.
Yeah. Yep.
You know?
The American voice of, because America is very like productivity. Like if you're a stay-at-home mom and your house isn't perfectly clean and you're not taking care of your husband's every need, then you're a piece of shit. And it's like, that's insane. That's an insane standard. And that's never happened. That's why housewives in the 50s were on lithium all the time. But that still perpetuate that as like an ideal that like, oh, the housewives in the 1950s, they got all the ironing done and packed their kids' school lunches. And you're like, and they had a lot of drugs that we don't have anymore. And
right.
But it's interesting because I also think
that was made with Coke.
That like when you're an entrepreneur and you have to set the standards of productivity for yourself, that is very tricky because the success of your business often rises and falls with you, and your income is tied to that, which is scary. But on top of that, like if you have a job and your boss says you're going to show up to work and you're going to accomplish X, Y, and Z every single week, and then we're going to review how those came out, and we're going to decide if we need to add more projects, change more projects, like what are we doing? And it's just very like, I've met very few people who work corporate America that say, I cannot get all my work done in my work hours. Most of them are like between 9 to 5, like I got some free time. And a lot of it is wasted like in meetings and stuff like that. But when you're an entrepreneur and you're setting your own time, how many of us sit in our calendar, we're like, okay, 5 a.m. I have to journal. And then at 5:30, I need to schedule my day. And at 6, I need to have my first call of the day. And at 7 to 9, I'm doing lead gen. And there's no break in all of that. 9 to 9:10, I'll finally have a bathroom break. From 9:10 to that, like if your corporate manager did that to you, you would fucking quit so fast. Yeah. But we put that pressure on ourselves. And it's just this weird, this high standard of like, I do this with myself with ideas where I'm like, okay, I have an idea. I'm kind of starting to execute pieces of it and it's not making money yet. What is wrong with me? This is such a massive failure. Like it's not even fully up and running. Like, and you're like, oh my God, that's literally not how the world even works. Why am I beating myself up?
Because we should be magical unicorns where everything just works differently than how the world works.
Exactly.
Obviously.
We should defy all laws of physics and nature.
Okay, so my next thing, because it's kind of in this line, is like when you talk to friends who feel like they're failing or they're trying to make a decision or they're trying to evaluate and analyze, like they're like, how do you speak to them and how do you find motivation with them? Because it most likely, well, from you two, I know it's not, but most likely is not shame.
Yeah. It's so crazy because I just met another friend that speaks the same language as I do. And it's like wonderful because my natural way to help is very solutions oriented. Because what I do for a living is I help people buy homes. And that is the most expensive thing most people buy. And you're talking about a 30-year commitment and what you can and can't afford. So I like literally help people through very emotionally charged, stressful decisions day in and day out. So I am like emotionally desensitized. I can very quickly be like, what are the pros and cons? What's the actual data that you should be considering? And then turning that into like questions for them to answer that helps them kind of self-discover what they want and what the practicality of this choice actually coming to fruition or not. And so that's the way that I take the approach. But I am also not the one to be like, oh, your feelings are hurt. like I just like, I don't know how to get through that phase. And because even whenever like I'm in that phase, like I don't want to sit there for long because I know it's not productive.
Yeah.
So like that's kind of the way that I do it.
Yeah. I think whenever I see a friend that I can tell they're beating themselves up, I try most often to either bring humor to them in some way if I can. And if I can't, I often try to bring them back to proof that it tells a different story than the story they're trying to tell themselves. Because I know that is like you said earlier, Katie, a pattern interrupt that stops it. You're saying this story is obviously saying this, and you're like, well, that's weird because this, and this completely contradicts that story.
Yeah.
And the things you're saying haven't even happened, or you're not the only person that they happen to. So having that like solid proof right there, and I know that helps me if somebody's like, you literally, like one thing Shane told me the other day when I was feeling really down about like, why do I even believe in myself on these things? Why do I bet on myself? All these people say X, Y, Z, or don't seem to really support me or whatever. And he's like, so my OP, the man who runs the office for real estate that I'm in, his name is Brendan, and he runs a massive team. They sold 450 homes last year. He's always been very, very successful, and he's always really believed in me. And Shane was like, do you think that he would believe in you with the level of success that he's had and be wrong in thinking that? Or do you think the people that don't even know you are making judgments based on their, their own self-esteem issues or their own jealousy issues? And who do you want to believe? And I was like, damn, that's a really good point. Like, there's people who have been alongside me for a really long time who have done great things, and they believe in me, they support me, and I'm discounting them to take in somebody else's story that doesn't even know me.
Yeah, wow.
That's like the whole reason I joined the Empire Circle. Not the whole reason, but the big piece of it was that like I couldn't discredit myself if they saw enough in me to let me in.
Yeah.
Well, and
so,
that's
like,
what you said, Biz. Like when you were deciding whether you wanted to join or not, you said, I just need to talk to them to see if they truly like think that I should be there or whatever, like, your exact words were. But like the moment that you you allowed yourself to believe that they saw your value and they saw like who you are as a person, you instantly felt like all in. And you allowed yourself to believe it.
Yeah. It's like we're gonna look for the proof, and then we have to choose to accept it once it's there.
Yeah.
It's like, God, send me a sign, and then he sends you a sign, and you're like, I don't believe you.
Well, that's literally what I did. I went toe to toe with Wendy, and I was like, if you can convince me that you want me, then I will do this right now. And I was like, that's the conversation we're having. And it's so funny because I feel so seen in it, because like Katie was there amping me up to have the talk as the like real friend that she is. And I put on my Jimmy Choos with my jeans and my sweatshirt to go have the conversation, because I was like putting on my boss shoes, get my boss talk. Yeah. And like the conversation ended with Wendy saying, well, you're obviously pretty fucking weird and I'm really fucking weird. So like, why not? And I was like, God, that's like that one. Okay, I feel seen with that. But it wasn't until like a month later, she actually called me out passively for putting on my Jimmy Choos to go down and have the conversation, that like she actually noticed that and like used that as part of its journey. So like, I'm just saying, like, I do feel like it's impossible to not feel seen, because like they see everything. And like when you have somebody like Shane or someone who's like in your professional life that's seen you grow up, so to speak, it means more. right, to us. And I think it's important with friendship, right? Like you can have a friend be that person, but that's why, you know, in general, it's really important to check in on what you're struggling with or what your goals are in that moment. Again, like bring in podcasts, go us. This is very timely, Katie. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing us back to like such a raw, like vulnerable topic.
Yeah.
And the current topic for us.
Thank you all for going here. So one of the other things, and I thought this was really interesting, was that was talked about like in this vein is that like what you do consistently without being motivated by shame is actually who you are. So the things that you choose to do when you aren't telling yourself you have to do it or somebody else expects you to do something is more of a reflection of who you are than like the action items you take because you feel like you aren't good enough if you don't do them.
I have to say something right now. The pit that I was in, I kept saying, I don't want to do this. Like, and even if it was things that should be making me happy, was like, this is not what I want to be doing. And it was being overwhelmed with that pressure to always do for others and always do all these things, or why isn't that? And so like, that's so valid the way that you just said that, Katie. Like, and I felt the need to interrupt you and tell you because I feel so seen in that comment. And like, that was the moment when I was really drowning. Like I never the only time I verbalized that was screaming it at my husband in those times. Like, you know, like we were on the freaking beach, like on what was supposed to be vacation. And I was like, I don't want to be here. You know, and it's so like that pressure, like we were talking about as a joking thing, but it really is so real and it's so overwhelming. Like, again, like I just like, we keep skirting through this, but God, you're just hitting it so good. Yeah.
So like, and you don't have to answer now, because for me, this is probably something that like, I probably have a couple of answers, but I'm going to journal through a lot of this of like, keeping that in mind, like how do you show up consistently when you don't have the pressure of what you think other people think you should do, right? Like how do you what do you enjoy doing, or how do you show up without that like shame as your motivator?
It's interesting. I will say, like, total vulnerable moment. I know we have a lot of real estate people that listen to this, so it's kind of difficult to open up about it. But there's something about like being so entrenched in your entrepreneur niche. So I'm sure this applies to people that get into like owning any type of business, and it becomes like who you are at such your core. But sometimes I'm like, if I wanted to quit real estate, I honestly don't know how I would do it because it's literally everything in my life. And it's kind of scary sometimes. You're like, literally like, if I quit real estate tomorrow and became, I don't even know, a banker, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not even licensed anymore. I don't have anything to do with it anymore. You know, do you go through and delete all the Facebook people that you're not actually friends with, that, you know, are just kind of like fringe colleagues? And then they stop caring about what you're posting because I'm not posting about real estate anymore. And like, what about my TikTok and my Instagram that I make all these funny videos that are all centered around real estate? Like, do I just get rid of those? Like, what do I talk about when I go to parties? It's so weird to me. Like every once in a while, I just kind of get like freaked out by that.
That's happened a lot in my mortgage mom community. There's been a lot of people over the past 2 years that have ducked and covered and gone to different industries. And there's like a process that I watch people go through. And now it's been long enough that some of them are starting to come back over with it. But that was something too, like I walked through in therapy. It was just really hard to imagine your life without it. And I think it's really important to be able to think of a life outside of your job. And with it. And that was just a really healthy exercise for me.
I like that. I might do that. No, it's just scary. Like you're literally like, if I woke up tomorrow and like the American government was like, we're completely banning the purchase and sale of real estate. Like, we've just decided that we're not going to do it anymore. And so they wipe out your whole industry and you're like, okay, like I managed to get a job doing something else. Like, what on earth is my life? Like, how do my friendships survive outside of real estate? Like, there's some friends, you know, like obviously you guys and some of my other core friends that I know, we have enough in common and we've gone through enough together that like those would survive. But there's a lot that you're like, damn, that would suck. Like, those are our friends. We just wouldn't have anything in common anymore. They live far away, and real estate conferences were the ways that we were able to get together. And you're like, damn, like,
so that's part of, like, I was very intentional when I moved to New Orleans in July of 2022 to not bring up my work with anybody that I met in person, because I really wanted to be intentional about having relationships that weren't built on that.
Can we pause at every single realtor listening just falling flat on the floor with you saying that?
Right. Well, and it's wild when I tell people, but none of my business is local. I've literally closed, I think it might be up to 3 now, loans in Louisiana since I moved back here in July of 2022, which I do significant volume-ish, like, so like it's a small fraction. But that's where I tell people, like, people don't know. And I kind of like it because I knew that I was struggling so much with that, and that it was like I needed to get like a whole like pattern interrupt, like new everything. And it's kind of a theme in my life that like I go like a decade in like a season. And the other thing I want to talk, since I'm so big on like practical things and not just resonating with things that we're saying, what I actually am doing is I stopped and I calculated a burn rate number. Yeah. And I hadn't done that in a very long time. So calculating a burn rate number, then figuring out the freedom number that is like passive income, and then like the super freedom number of like actual retirement and what that is, and kind of like framing that and giving myself permission to just look at things from a bird's eye view, and my job as just one avenue. And so this big switch that I'm going through, like talking about like, you know, your mid-30s change is like, all right, well, what have we done so far? And like, let's take an assessment of what can be done with this and how. And it all stemmed from that first question, Ashleigh, of like, well, what would my life look like without my job? But another one of the most empowering things a leader, and I used that term loosely after our talk previously, but leader gave me, was that they were talking about me to someone else and I was listening to them and they didn't know. And they were like, Biz would be fine because she's in sales. She could walk away from mortgages today and pick up something else, and within 3 months be like there. And hearing somebody else have that confidence in you was also really freeing. And so I just want to be the one to say that to you, Ashleigh. You would be 100% okay if you decided to shift your energy focus into another direction, because perseverance, intelligence, and integrity are really the 3 pillars of any successful entrepreneur. And you possess those things. So like that's what I'm really doing right now, is taking this bird's eye view, recognizing each day is so many hours that I'm awake, that I have X amount of energy to expend in different areas. And where do I want to put that energy and why? And so it starts again, like I was just talking to y'all about how easy it is for me to look at data. Yet that was like the scariest thing for me to sit down and do with myself. Yeah. Because it's like a drug. Like if the boogeyman is in the closet, then it motivates me to go. Yeah. And that's what this whole exercise season that I'm in is, like banishing the boogeyman in that regard. So that's how I'm actually doing it, is really sitting down, starting with my reality and understanding where that is. And then having conversations with you guys, right, about where I'm wanting to go. And the resources are out there for whatever you want to do. And the people are out there to support you in whatever you want to do. You know, and so that's, like I said, it's a long process. long shift. And hopefully we can teach our kids better than us. So it's easier.
In a much shorter time.
Yeah, an easier journey. And that's when I sit back at like the big stuff that I want to teach Liv, like this is it. Like this piece that it is. And that's what I was talking about when you asked in our 21st episode, like what's the biggest thing we're taking away? And I talk about like my mental peace, like my state of mind, state of peace that I'm in. It's this growth. And I mean, y'all are a big piece of that too.
You know, there's a thing that I heard, and I try my best to use it, talking about like wanting to teach our kids differently, is that I obviously tell Connor that I'm proud of him about things, but when he does something and like he works on it or whatever, I say things like, are you proud of yourself?
Yeah.
Like you should be so proud of yourself or whatever, because even when it's good validation, I don't want him to be seeking, I don't want the opinion of somebody else to be stronger than his own opinion of himself. And I don't want his first reaction of like, also, I know, like I talked about before, of like, I'm words of affirmation. And so if people don't say it, I think they don't think it. And so, you know, it's like, I don't want him to feel empty if somebody ever doesn't recognize something, you know, like I should teach you to speak kindly to yourself, which means I have to speak kindly to myself in front of him. So I'm just quiet a lot. But I love that you said that, because it is like such an important thing. Like it's a cool opportunity that we have to recognize these things, and it sucks to work through it, but we come out better on the other side. But we also have been given the gift of being able to help other people not go through this and treat themselves more kindly, which in turn will help them treat others with more kindness. So, which is proven by Ashleigh's comments on her Instagram, the world could use some more of that.
I literally, I got a hate comment the other day, and I forget what it said, but whatever it was like, you should, I did a get ready with me video where I just did like, get ready with me to go cry in the shower. And like, it
was so funny.
Just funny little, like what get ready with me in real estate is like. And somebody commented and said, get ready with me to keep scrolling, which first of all was funny. But second of all,
okay, sorry, that's hilarious.
I don't like your video. And at first, I was like going to say something kind of snarky. And instead, I don't know what it was, but instead I was just like, hey, I hope you have a better day. Yeah. And they deleted their comment.
Oh.
And I was like, wow. Like life lesson for me. Like, obviously there's some people that are literally just out there trolling online for reactions and stuff. But, some of the hate that you get, you forget. It's like, those are literally just people maybe having a bad moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good for you. And that I talk a lot of smack on my spades game. I don't necessarily show up as the best person there, but like, something but I'm going to try that. I'll try to be nicer next time and see how it happens. I wrote down imposter syndrome in the very beginning of this talk. And I think that the shame motivators and the imposter syndrome feeling that we talk about all resonating, that I wonder how much those are like directly linked.
Probably very closely, because you're shaming yourself out of places you should be or out of opportunities.
Like obviously I'm not supposed to be here because
who told you? Because when you asked earlier, if you asked earlier if I was aware of it, like I am, but not. I think it's just a difference in what you're calling it. But I think there's a lot of power in linking imposter syndrome with shame motivating. And so like, I really appreciate that. I feel like I leveled up today.
Yeah.
With our powers combined.
All right. So before we wrap up, if we are going to talk nicely about ourselves, I want us all to say something about ourselves that we like. I know last episode we talked about something that we're proud of, but something that we like about ourselves that we are not pressured into being. It's not a character trait that shows up because we feel like we have to perform that way for someone, but just someone about at the heart of it, this is how you are.
I'm
God,
curious.
that's so uncomfortable. I would say I appreciate and enjoy my own sense of humor because I truly do like sitting here
you
with
are
my feet in the
freaking
air
hilarious.
giggling. I'm just giggling at myself. So I truly enjoy that without even the process of things making it to the internet or sharing it with other people. If I can, I truly do want to laugh every single day. Like, you know, the idea of a life well spent is all these moments, and not every moment can be perfect. But if you can laugh every day,
You know what else is so great about because you are just like genuinely so funny.
thank you.
You are so good at reading your audience and being able to, I know you've called yourself a chameleon in social situations before, but your humor kind of is too. And like you can read the room so well. And then like your humor is your humor, obviously, but like you almost tailor the things that you say or like the comments you make to the people that you know it'll hit right with. And it's so funny. It's like every situation or setting, Ashleigh has like a funny quip, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Biz,
Yeah.
what's yours?
I was just saying, if I really strip it down, it's my curiosity. Like,
Ooh.
I am genuinely curious about people, things, how they work, and
yeah.
But I
That
want
comes across too.
Huh?
That comes across too.
It does, yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Like when you're like sitting with you and you're asking questions about me, or we're sitting in a group and you're asking somebody questions about themselves, like it's so rare to see like that amount of genuine curiosity just embodied. It's really great.
Mm-hmm. And you don't assume responses either, or like assume like when you ask a question to somebody, you truly are like curious about their answer. And because a lot of people just ask a question to pitch themselves to talk, and like you are so genuinely curious. I love it.
Thanks. When I first read your question, I thought I was going to say my perseverance.
Ooh, I like that too.
My perseverance is what I'm like, but after this conversation and like really chewing on it and you re-asking it, I think it's my curiosity, because I think my perseverance is not an attribute that I want to highlight in that regard after this conversation.
Yeah. That's fair.
Because I think basically like I just got real good at shame motivators. So yeah, the curiosity piece. Yeah, thanks. But I just want to articulate this, the point that it changed. It's cool.
Yeah. What about you, Katie?
I would say my enthusiasm, even though I've been like not as of late, and like at the heart of it, I am a very excited person. And I love that. Like I love celebrating people and things and food and new days and sunshine and all of the things. And I really like that about myself. And I like that I get excited. It's fun.
I do too. And that comes out because like somebody can call you in a bad mood and then you're both happy at the end of it. So like it is. It's like a never-ending spring.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, like that's why Katie gets so many of my "I have an idea" texts, because I'm like, no matter what Katie's got going on, I know she's gonna be like, yes, absolutely, best idea ever.
Okay, to be fair, I will tell you if I think it's a bad one, but like if it's something that I think is a good idea, and like I'm gonna hype you up for it. I am.
Yeah, I love it. I eat that shit up every time.
Well, keep them coming, baby. I get so excited. This is so good. This is so fun. I'm also excited for us to continue this conversation because I think there's little bits and pieces from this that like we'll probably be chewing on for a little while. Because I know like I'm gonna watch the video that I referenced like multiple times and just kind of let it hit.
We should.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe we can put the link in the episode description.
Yeah.
So everybody can go
in our community group. Let's
Yeah.
use our group.
Ooh,
Yeah.
great idea.
We can have a discussion there.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been so fun, and I appreciate y'all being so vulnerable. I'm really happy with this. I think that this is an important conversation.
Yeah, I feel
for
good
us
having
to
had
have.
it. I was a little scared. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
this is one of those episodes you walk away from going, I need to think about life.
No, I feel really good.
Yeah.
So I hope you all did too. Please go watch the video. Let us know how we can speak kinder to you. Rate us, subscribe to us, share us with a friend. Celebrate the fact that we're legal. We're in the top. You are now a listener of one of the top 1% podcasts. Congratulations.
Congratulations. You're a very smart listener.
And we will see you next week. Boop, 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 boop.